Okay, I have 3 o'clock precisely, so we are on YouTube, and I think we should move forward immediately with the agenda. We have a lot to accomplish today with meetings at 3 and 4 and 6 and 7 and 9, and we'll be here. So welcome everybody to the Town of Gibsons Committee of the Whole meeting for April 20, 2021. I acknowledge we are meeting today on the traditional territory of the Squamish Nation. We have an agenda before us, and could I call the meeting to order at 3 o'clock and ask for an approval of the agenda? Councillor Crowell, thank you. Councillor Ludwig, thank you. All in favor of approval? Thank you very much. We'll move forward with this, and could I have a motion to receive all of the reports and information on the agenda? I think it's just, all the report. Thank you. Thank you. Motion, Councillor Crowell, Councillor Diendrad, all in favor? Okay, thank you. Okay. So we will proceed right off the top with our Gibsons and District Volunteer Fire Department. Chief Michael, are you in the crowd?
Just 1 minute, Mayor, while I bring him over.
Thank you. Chief, good afternoon.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Oh, thank you very much for being here, and thank you for your report. And I'll allow you to just launch right into it.
All right, I'll keep it short. I sympathize with the meetings, although I don't have as many as council has today. I have 2 at 3 o'clock, so I'll see how quickly I can get through that.
That wasn't well planned.
No. So the fire department's membership currently sits at 46 members, with 34 of those members having achieved their NFPA 1001 standard for firefighter professional qualifications. The focus on training for this quarter was completion of the full service program, annual drills, hazardous materials, and first responder medical. I'm really excited about the continued cooperation with the town of Gibsons and the shared hosting of an air brakes course as well. The fire department responded to 82 calls for service in the first quarter of 2021, including a snowplow into a tree, an abandoned recreational vehicle fire, a helicopter landing zone outside of the fire department's jurisdiction, and a storm that resulted in 12 calls in a very short period of time, which I think is a record, but I was unable to find statistics on previous volume. The fire prevention team completed 89 fire and life safety inspections, 1 fire investigation, 7 referrals, and a virtual fire hall tour for kindergarten and grade 1 students. And I was very pleased with how that went and how well it was received. In particular, Knox Swafield, who asked when he could start training to be a firefighter. So I think it also helped with our recruitment efforts. And in particular, I was actually, I didn't catch the boy's name, but I was very proud of another young boy who asked where the girls were. So we scrambled a little bit to change up our plan for the next day and had some enthusiastic females in our department who jumped in and did the next session, because I thought that was really powerful to come from a young boy, and we did want to showcase some of our other members and show the inclusivity we've got here. 2021 budget projects have started with enhanced sanitation procedures already in place and a job posting for the deputy fire chief expected imminently. Future reports will provide updates on the hazardous materials response trailer, rescue truck upgrades, emergency generator, and health benefits for volunteers. Not contained within the report provided, vaccination efforts for volunteer firefighters are expected to take place by the end of the month. However, no firm dates have been provided by Vancouver Coastal Health at this point. I'm expecting to learn a little bit more on that at 3 o'clock today. And I'm happy to answer any questions from Mayor and Council at this time.
Chief, thank you for your report, and in anticipation of your time, we'll just go quickly to Council. Council, any questions for the Chief? Yeah, Councillor Lumley first, then Councillor Crowell.
Hey, Chief. Helicopter landing outside of your zone, the fire zone.
Yeah, so part of the reason I contained this in the report was to explain a little bit actually how that process works. So thank you for the question. And so the fire department has the ability to respond outside of our jurisdiction with provincial approvals. And in this particular case, there was a workplace injury of unknown severity, and the fire department was requested to set up a helicopter landing zone at the site in question. We had asked if there was alternatives available, such as the Langdale Ferry Terminal or somewhere along there that was within our jurisdiction. And the request was, no, we want it right on the site. So we went ahead and we seek the provincial approval to have that done. So we were able to do a successful helicopter landing zone. The injury turned out to be less severe than first thought, and everything went well.
Thank you, Chief. Councillor Kroll?
Thank you, Mayor Beamish. I just wanted to thank you for the report, Chief Michaels, and also, your reference to your virtual tour. Last year, just at the onset of COVID, Mayor Beamish and I both attended the open house at the station in person. We weren't quite as, dealing with the problems we were now, but it was organized by as I recall, it was organized by the women members of your detachment initially, and it was I can only sort of applaud your detachment and the commitment of your members, and particularly the women members, because it was a great open house last year, and I think everyone who attended it really enjoyed it. So thank you for the commitment.
Thank you. We are very proud of all our members here, and in particular, the ones who put on that event were pretty upset that we couldn't do it again, but they've endeavored to make it bigger and better when it's safe to do so.
Thank you. Are there any further questions, Council? Chief, thank you. When does the health benefits for your members kick in?
So I understand there to be a meeting later this week in discussion on what that bid process is going to look like. I haven't had a full briefing yet, but I understand it to be underway. It could be some time, but we are motivated to get this in place as soon as we can.
Excellent. Thank you. Well, there'll be no further questions. I'll excuse you to your next meeting.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Next on our agenda is the Grants of Assistance Program Round 1 intake, and we have the Director of Finance with us.
Thank you, Mayor Beamish. So the grants of assistance are being presented today for the committee's review, and I'm going to keep it relatively brief because it is a full agenda and don't have a lot of time. So page 2 of my report lists the round 1 applications. The total request at this time is $14,100. The individual applications are listed, the totals listed there in the organizations. The agenda package includes the individual applications, which provides detail to the committee on each program, as well as the associated budgets for each program. All the funding requests are at or below the policy's 10% cap of $2,000, so no issues there. There were several applications with repeat funding, so I just want to make a comment on a few of those. So the Deer Crossing the Art Farm, you see that they have had repeat applications, but these ones relate to a new phase of a multi-year project. The Friends of Parkland Sunshine Coast Community Association, they have submitted a request for liability insurance, and the committee might remember last year that funding for insurance was provided on a one-time basis as part of the program. The committee does have an alternative, though, to provide funding to the association for, say, supply costs or other areas that they incurred costs during the year. The association did provide just earlier today a slideshow that shows the really great work that they've been doing, and I'll provide that to council as part of the committee reading file. It shows some before and after pictures. It shows some really great stuff going on up there. And just for a clarification, so the association doesn't qualify under the town's volunteer insurance program. This is covered by the Municipal Insurance Association of BC, and that's for 2 reasons. One is because the work isn't directly supervised by town staff, but the other one is that the volunteer insurance program offered by MIABC doesn't extend to members of an association. So that's just a bit of background there on why they're not covered under our umbrella. But again, I'll share these slides with you later today, or maybe actually through council reading file. It really shows some great work that the association is doing up there in Parkland. Two other applications that were repeats. The Huckleberry Coast Child Care Society has requested funding for the Little Hands program. And this, you're familiar with this one. This has received grant funding in the past in 5 prior years. And the Sunshine Coast Community Services Society also requesting funding for parents and tots. And this has received grant funding in 4 prior years. And both of these organizations provide programs to children, which council has identified as being important to support, which is probably why they get repeat funding as well. And so total, typically the town allocates about 75% of the full budget, and that's about $15,000. So this round 1 intake is below that level. So that's nice to see that we're not oversubscribed like we used to be in the past. So the applications are provided for your review, and we do have actually several applicants in attendance if the committee has any questions about programming or questions for the applicants. Yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Director. Council, how do you want to proceed with this? I mean, 2 options. One, you could take them individually and discuss them and resolve, or because we are within the budget on this and you've had a chance to look at the applications, you could also move that they all be approved and move on. So I'll open it up for discussion on that. Councillor Ludwig?
I would lean towards approving them all and moving forward, but also having a conversation about, this whole concept of the criteria and what we're supposed to be funding and not. And one of the things that the criteria outlines is that we're not supposed to be, supporting an ongoing fund. Let me just get the writing here. Where it says the application is part of an annual fund drive for sustaining support. And so it's just starting to feel like some of these applications are kind of part of that train of thinking and just questioning what we do about that. I mean, I support all the projects, they're all great work, but I'm just wondering if it's starting to slip into outside of the criteria, that's all.
Councillor Kroll, then Councillor Diendrad.
Thank you, Mayor Beamish. I'm totally in agreement with Councillor Ludwig. I thought about it myself. Some of the groups that keep coming back and back, and it's part of the reason we move seniors from grants of assistance to a budget line. So I certainly support moving them as presented, but I think what we should do is perhaps have a look, and it's not going to happen until next year's budget. We mentioned in our budget talks this year about children and playground things. As we have the line for seniors, we should maybe move a couple of these things from grants of assistance to children and put it in as a budget line and free up some of this funding for, one-time applications, which is what it's supposed to be. So I would certainly second Councillor Ludwig's proposal to move it as presented, and suggest that we do a review of it when we're preparing next year's budget.
Thank you. Councillor Diendrad?
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, I agree. I was going also to make the comment, because item 2 says the total grant amount provided to organizations will not exceed 10% of the town's annual grants of assistance budget. But we have the case of the Deer Crossing Art Farm, and they come up with 2 programs, which I don't have any problem with that, but that's another issue with the policy. The policy is saying that the organizations cannot get more than 10%, and they are asking for each program $1,500. So it's $3,000, which is more than 10%. So this is another example of a clause that has to be revised. I don't have a problem. Perhaps we just need to change the language to programs. And it doesn't matter if one organization has more than one program. If we like the program and if there's not competition, that's okay. But that's another issue. And I don't know, because we have been having, this is the 3rd year that we have this discussion. Every year we approve, we advance a tiny bit, but perhaps maybe we have to do it. And I think fall is the time, perhaps when we talk to the community in terms of, a planning for a real planning, budget planning on terms of programs. I think this is a good, a good question for the community, just to see what people suggest. I mean, we can choose to move to single lines as suggestion. Perhaps if there's too much competition, we might choose another approach. But I think I think we need to figure out how to do that, because we're just pushing every year.
The SDRD changes it every year too. And they have that conversation, they review it, and they see it all. What are we doing this year? So yeah, I agree. And perhaps that's good information to the Director of Finance to put this on a future agenda. Perhaps in the fall that we can have a further conversation about before we go out to the to invite people to apply. That's certainly the time frame we have to do it if we're going to make changes. So I hear mover and seconder that we approve the 14,100 to the grant to the applications. There still leaves $5,900 in that budget that people can come back with, as well as we still have just over $12,000 in the COVID budget as well, so that there are still grants out there available to people, and we may re-advertise that one. So being said, moved and seconded, all in favor of the awards? Thank you very much. Thank you. So thank you very much, and thank you for all who applied. I'm sorry if you're here to just listen to us give you money and you really wanted to say something, but we'll perhaps another time we'll hear from you. So Councilor Kroll?
I was just going to suggest if there was anyone who had something that they felt was important to add, that, it might be good to give them the opportunity.
Well, I'm certainly willing to do that. If anybody does really want to speak to this, you're welcome to make yourself known right now to the corporate officer. Otherwise, we'll move forward.
I would just ask that anyone who wishes to speak raise their hand.
And Mr. Mayor, if I may, while we're waiting, I just want to clarify, would the committee like to have that discussion about the policy before the round 2 intake? Or you're thinking before 2022 budget? So maybe October, November kind of thing, or would you prefer before?
Before round 2. When do you advertise for round 2?
Well, round 2, the deadline is September 15th. So this would be, and we don't generally advertise so much for grant of assistance. We'd never have a trouble having an intake. But this would mean a meeting then would probably have to take place in July.
I'm comfortable waiting till the fall, and we proceed on the same grounds we've done this, just for the fairness to other organizations that are out there, that they all be treated consistently in this year.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you very much for clarifying.
Yeah, I would like to make a suggestion. I don't know if we need a motion, but if staff could also bring something, because it falls into, into council to start coming up with all the ideas. Perhaps staff can do a comparative analysis of certain municipalities. How do they do? Maybe people have figured out a good formula, and it could help us to decide how we go about it.
Director of Finance, have we done that before? Or?
I haven't, but what I'll do is I will bring back, I just made some notes about basically one of the issues that the committee wants to talk about is how to address the repeats that they keep coming up. They're great programs, but maybe not in the grants of assistance umbrella. The cap, and then also I'll make a note about comparatives. We often get compared to the regional district and the district of Sechelt because of course we're all on the coast. I could bring some maybe comparatives back with that. Yeah, and I'll bring this back for a fall committee of the whole meeting for your discussion after September.
Does that work, Councilor Diendrath?
Yeah.
Okay, good. Thank you, Director of Finance.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Okay, we'll return to our agenda. The next item is the development permit for form of character of a studio to garden suite conversion at 594 Shaw Road. And Kirsten, are you going to speak to this?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I'll just share my screen. All right, confirm we see it.
Yes, thank you.
Okay. Yeah, so I'm presenting a development permit application for the form and character of a proposed garden suite at 594 Shaw Road. And the applicant has requested approval to convert a recently renovated studio on the property for use as a garden suite. As the building was recently upgraded through a building permit for use as an accessory studio, the committee is asked to provide a recommendation on whether to issue the permit for the existing form and character of the building and landscape. Oh, sorry. There we go. The accessory building and the proposed garden suite, shown here peeking out from behind the carport of the principal dwelling, was originally built as a garage, and significant recent renovations were completed on the building, including updates to the siding, windows, doors, and interior to convert the original garage to a comfortable studio space. And for context to the recent renovations, I have the applicant's permission to share that her husband was diagnosed with and recently passed away from ALS. His illness quickly affected his muscles and mobility. And so through last year, 2020, and into this year, the community, with town support, helped JP and Nicole to convert their garage into an accessible studio space with a washroom and plumbing where JP could safely be cared for in his own home as his condition worsened. That renovation was nearly complete and the studio in use when JP sadly passed away in February. So as the studio is well designed and equipped for use as a garden suite, the applicant is requesting approval to rent the building as a garden suite and mortgage helper for her family. So the property outlined in blue is located at the intersection of Poplar Lane and Shaw Road, just south of Highway 101 and Sunnycrest Mall. And along with other properties fronting Davis and Poplar Lane, this one was recently included in the town's garden suites areas through a town-led bylaw amendment that was to encourage infill development in the neighborhood. The approximately 550 square foot single story suite is tucked kitty corner to the principal dwelling at the southeast corner of the lot. And it's well buffered from both road frontages within the mature landscape and screened from immediate neighbors to the south and east by a panel fence. The siting of the suite meets the zoning bylaw requirements for setback size and height and required parking, which is provided for the suite and principal dwelling as shown in the carport and the existing driveway. And as the garden suite and the principal dwelling are located closer than one another than the regulations permit, an application for a variance was approved by the Board of Variance on April 8th. And that was to relax the 5-meter building separation. All garden suite development in the town of Gibsons, as we know, requires a development permit to ensure that the form and character of new suites is well fit with the neighborhood and the community context, and to ensure that the development of quality housing. Garden suite applications are reviewed with respect to the guidelines under intensive residential development permit area number 8. These guidelines are outlined along with staff's review on page 4 of the staff report. So to introduce the proposal, this is a view of the property and the existing landscaping as seen from its frontage on Shaw Road in summer. The arrow indicates the studio shown prior to the renovation. And clearly it's well screened from the road within the mature landscape. It has just 1 story and under 600 square feet of living area, including a living room fronting Shaw Road, bedroom, bathroom, and future kitchen. And the applicant has indicated that she plans to make minor ongoing updates to the driveway and on-site landscaping. This image shows the front of the unit and west-facing living room window with renovations nearly completed. New cream-colored siding is now installed along with the large new front window, and the entrance alcove is seen at left, accessible from the driveway. This image shows the covered entry with a new front door, wiring for overhead lighting, and with access to the front driveway. And this image is taken from an accessibility ramp from the house, which is visible in the foreground and which will be removed. This is the rear of the suite facing east with the new white siding and gray trim nearly complete. This space will provide a small outdoor patio space for the resident of the suite, in addition to the large shared outdoor spaces on the property. And my apologies to Nicole for catching this photo with short notice with construction materials at work in the yard. And the panel fence provides a a buffer from the adjacent residential properties. And letters were received from each of these immediate neighbors in support of the application. So finally, the application was shared at the first meeting of our new advisory design panel on April 7th, right before Board of Variance. In its review with regards to the form and character guidelines, the panel shared comments in support of the application largely. Members did comment that natural siding material would have been preferred, but that the current updates to the building and siding were nonetheless fresh and well coordinated with the principal dwelling, so no changes were recommended. The application was referred to the fire department and internal departments, and all responded with no concerns. So following into recommendations, the ADP recommended that the form and character application be approved as presented. And staff's review of the guidelines is I already mentioned that. The staff review found that the application substantially addresses the guidelines for garden suites, and so has also recommended that the application be approved as presented. And we are also further recommending that the application be forwarded directly to tonight's council meeting for a timely decision. And that's all from me. I believe we have the applicant Nicole Poirier in attendance in case you have any questions for her.
Thank you very much, Kirsten. Council, do you have any questions on this? And any, looks like an ideal situation, one that we want to encourage in the community, and appreciate the owner coming forward with this option for additional housing in the community. Councilor Crowell, you had your hand up.
Thank you, Mayor Beamish. As Kirsten mentioned, this was one of the first applicants that came before the advisory design committee, and the whole project was well received. I think the issue of the siding was addressed, but it does match the existing house, and I have to admit, it was really quite refreshing with the new members of the design panel. There was some really good input, some suggestions as to, people putting in suites, what could be done to bring natural light into the environment and one thing and another. So the whole project was well received, and I think we have a good panel to work with.
Thank you. Councilor Diendrad?
Question regarding minutes. I know the other planning meeting, even the advisory, they had minutes. Are we having minutes for this one too? Are the minutes available?
Sorry, I can try to address that. We're figuring out the processes with our new committee, and admit we had some difficulties with the timeline on this one with staff absences and so on. So we did mean to get you the minutes in one form or another, and I think we plan to resolve that for the next application.
Okay.
Ms. Poirier, I see you there. Would you like to add anything to the conversation?
No, I don't have anything to add.
Okay. So
Just that. Thank you, everyone.
thank you again for bringing this additional housing opportunity forward. Council, your wishes. Oh, Councilor Crowell?
I just wanted to move that the project be approved as proposed, and following that, I have a question for staff.
Did you also want to move it to come to council tonight?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Is that seconded, Councilor Lumley? Okay. Did you want to ask your question now, Councilor Crowell, or after the vote?
After the vote is fine, sir.
Okay, so all in favor of the council issuing development permit DP2 recommended to council 2021-05 for the form and character of the garden suite conversion, and that the resolution be forwarded to council for tonight's meeting. All in favor? Thank you very much. Nicole, you're one step closer. Thank you. Councilor Crowell, go ahead.
I was just wanting to question with staff, there was a second proposal that we discussed at the advisory design panel, and I thought it had been recommended that it be brought to committee of the whole on the condition that a follow-up on new landscape plan be provided, but to get them working on the initial project that we approved it and that it be brought forward. And I'm just wondering perhaps why we're not seeing that one at this time.
And I'll answer that. I saw the director of planning pop up, but yeah, it's my understanding that the applicants were going to address some of the requests for more information and bring that forward to, they needed just a bit more time, and so wanted to bring it forward to a meeting that is upcoming soon.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Kirsten. We'll move on to the next item, which is the draft wildlife attraction bylaw. Now, we have both Silas White, consultant, and Sue Booth, the bylaw enforcement officer, in attendance. And council, just for your information, the recommendations that are on the report, as I was reviewing this with our corporate officer, we changed the recommendations so that they are different than the recommendations that you see on your agenda package. And basically what we've done to change them is, rather than put it through for first, second, third reading, we've recommended to go to first reading only to council. And also that we've added that there'd be an opportunity for public input on the bylaws, and there'd be a future report to council recording the public input, and that come forward to council tonight. So you'll see that so it's different than the recommendations that are in the report itself. Okay, so with that being said, I'll turn to Mr. White, who is the consultant who worked with us under Manny's direction.
Hi, everyone. The background on this bylaw is that, of course, the Bear Alliance did a presentation to council, and council requested that this bylaw be put together. And now we are in bear season. A newspaper article even just appeared about bears starting to appear on the coast. So this. I was asked to help out and get this bylaw done in coordination with your bylaw enforcement officer, Sue Booth, and with the planning department. We studied a number of other bylaws in BC to help with this. There are quite a few in the Sea to Sky region. Whistler is probably the one of the leaders, certainly in BC, in working on wildlife safe issues, and Squamish and Pemberton and the regional district of Squamish-Lillooet have all followed suit. So we've had a look at what's worked in other areas, and we do want to draw your attention to a couple areas that I think would be the reason for putting this out to the public. One is bird feeders. And that is touched upon in the report. There is a suggestion that the easiest way for bylaw enforcement to handle bird feeders is just to say that let's just separate them completely from bears during bear season, not have any in April to the end of November. And the reasoning for that is they are very successful bear attractants, wildlife attractants. And another issue that we've highlighted in the report is the ban on having outdoor refrigerators and freezers. And that's basically informally been in effect for quite a while. The bylaw enforcement officer does recommend that everybody not have outdoor store food outside in any way, because it does attract wildlife. And I think the report is fairly self-explanatory. I reviewed it today to make sure there was nothing else. So I'll leave it to questions, and Sue will be able to answer questions straight from her experience on the ground too.
Thank you, Silas. And Sue, give you a chance. Do you have any remarks you'd like to make at the opening of this conversation?
No, only just to say that this is a great opportunity that we were given to actually address certain complaints that we get that we so far have not been able to deal with. So the things that you see in the bylaw there are definitely, I'm excited about, to be able to finally deal with some of these problem incidents.
And do we have capacity to deal with those problem incidents?
Oh, for sure, because I'm dealing with them anyway.
Okay.
I'm just not able to get a result or have any teeth to back it up.
Okay, I'll turn over to council for questions and comments. Councilor Diandrad.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, I was really pleased to see the bylaw. That's great. I have a comment. A comment regarding communication. I wonder if it's feasible to talk to the ferry, because a lot of tourists. I know we are under COVID, but a lot of tourism comes through the ferry. Well, basically all of them, and that would be a great ad. If there's something to be put at the ferry, like an educational campaign, maybe a few posters. So I wonder if the town of Gibson would be this would be feasible to ask them, and also do some sort of communication with the schools. And I don't know, Sue, I don't know, maybe you don't have time to go to schools to talk, but if there's at least a letter from the town that they could incentivize principals and the curriculum just to talk about that. And then I have a suggestion. It's just for consistency. I noticed that on the wildlife attractant bylaw, wildlife means dangerous wildlife, raccoons, members of the family, cervidae, deer, birds, and rodents. And then on the garbage and organics bylaw, the definition of dangerous wildlife is bear, cougar, wolf, and coyote. So I thought that was good that the two define exactly the same for consistency. A third point, but I'm curious with the feedback from the community, is about the bird feeders, because I get it. It is an attractant, but I wonder if someone is monitoring while they are feeding the animals, if that would be really not an issue. And depending on the area, it might not be an issue at all. But I don't know how complicated it could be. So I'll leave for the public feedback, but this is my feedback. That's my only concern, because in some ways the birds benefit from, habitat is shrinking, and the fact that, if you feed birds properly with good seeds, so you're helping their population to thrive. But I get it, they could be. So I don't know, sometimes just prohibiting at all, I know is easy to manage the bylaw, but we are kind of impacting another area. But I'll leave for now for the feedback.
Thank you. Any response, Silas or Sue, to those comments before we move on? The definition one.
As far as the definition goes, the most up-to-date one would be in the new bylaw, and the garbage and organics amendment. That's something to clarify too, is that the fees bylaw and the garbage and organics bylaw are both amendments to previous bylaws. So that could be an amendment to add to that one. I would recommend that you use a definition for the new bylaw though, because that's the one we just worked on.
Okay, thank you. Councilor Kroll.
Thank you, Mayor Beamish. I just wanted to commend staff, first of all, because I got my water bill today, and there's a note in it about we're in bear season, and to be proactive, not to encourage them. So, kudos to staff. They're ahead of the bylaw, which is great. If we can get things resolved with respect to the short-term rentals, I think it would be more apropos as people apply for their business licenses for short-term rentals, that information with respect to bears, because these are the people that are having barbecues, that are bringing pets, putting the dog food dish out on the deck. And I think it would be a better opportunity at the door to address in our community. I don't think a lot of people pay a lot of attention to flyers and notices on BC ferries because they're sitting in their RV down on the car deck. So I think the money would be better spent doing a handout with the business license applications.
Councilor Ludwig.
Yeah, I'd like to just spend a minute talking about backyard chickens. I know, I understand that that backyard chickens are prohibited under the zoning bylaw 1065, and it's been captured here in this bylaw. And I understand that if irresponsibly maintained or managed, that they can be an animal attractant. But you know, we do continually talk about food security on the Sunshine Coast. And, you know, I grew up in a community just outside of Richmond where just every other yard had a few veggie boxes, a couple fruit trees, and a small chicken coop, and it was lovely. And I've actually brought this up and I inquired about backyard chickens with our director of planning, and she did inform me that it's a surprisingly controversial topic that I naively didn't understand. So by no means do I think this is something that would get resolved overnight, but it is a conversation that at some point during our term I'd like to have. And I was just wondering if bullet 3.5.7 could simply say something along the lines of poultry, saying that, you know, that that we need to comply with zoning bylaw 1065. In that, maybe one day if we have a conversation about backyard chickens, and if that bylaw were to change, that you wouldn't have to change two bylaws at the same time, would just say refer to bylaw number 1065. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Mhm.
And the reason I say that is because I would like to see us treat backyard chickens the same way we're treating fruit trees. In this, we're saying that you're allowed to have a fruit tree, they're not banned, but you have to be responsible about them. And meanwhile, we've outlined a bear resistant, or sorry, what are we calling it? Animal resistant enclosures. And we talk about the need to ensure that you address smell. So we're doing all of these things, but then at the same time we're saying, and on top of that, you can't have backyard chickens. And so it's like, but if you had an enclosed space that was animal resistant and you were taking care of the smell, why couldn't you? And so it's just a conversation that at some point I'd like to have.
I guess my question is that if we already ban poultry and beehives pursuant to bylaw 1065, do we even have to reference it in this bylaw?
Good question.
Yeah. So
That did come up in the conversation with staff, and it was felt that because there are other municipalities that have that language for beehives and chickens and other keeping other animals when that's allowed. And the decision was not to include that because it could be misleading to people if they just look at this bylaw out of context. Then it might suggest to them that they can have a chicken coop in their backyard when actually the zoning bylaw says you can't. So that's why we suggested that direction for now. But by all means, if that changes, then this bylaw should change as well.
mm-hmm.
Just to be clear, there are actually 3 properties in the town where you could have chickens. So there is that sort of exemption for those 3 places right now.
I know of 2 places that have chickens. I'm not sure if they're exempted.
Probably grandfathered in.
Well, that's Councilor D'Andrade.
Thank you, Mayor. Just on the communication piece, when I was referring to the ferry, it was in addition to the STR. And the STRs was actually a recommendation from the Bear Alliance that not only they get information, but they have posted inside the facility all the warnings about bears, about all the guidelines, the basic guidelines. So foreign tourists, they can, especially if they don't belong here, because not every area is it's a bear country, right? They could understand. So this was on top of the STR, and I'm just assuming that actually was this reference here, because that was one of the recommendations of the Bear Alliance, or are we leaving this when we deal with STRs? I wouldn't mind the recommendation because I think it's an important one.
Recommendation being
to that the all STRs have like a poster inside with the guidelines what they cannot do. So people who are coming to our town that they're not aware that this is bear territory, that they can see from the onset. So that was a recommendation by the Bear Alliance.
I think we should probably save that to the SCR bylaw once we have one and put that in there. Good idea. Yeah. But we are just doing this as a first reading, and that allows us to go out to the community, to have some publicity around it, relying on staff to come up with a plan that they would get it out, get the information out there and feedback to us in a timely way, because we are, as we say, in bear season. And I hope that this will stimulate some conversation both through the media and through our staff to the public. It will come tonight. There's a couple of changes, so like that 3.5.7, I wouldn't mind just taking it right out of the bylaw. It already is in a bylaw, and it's difficulty when you go through to other bylaws and you say, well, let's put this in, and then you start missing things elsewhere, or you amend bylaws and what's the consequential amendment down the road. So that anything that makes it simpler to enforce and to relate to. If there's no more conversation or questions at this time, Silas and Sue, thank you for your work on this. And I will refer council to the recommendations that are in your package, in your agenda, as opposed to that are on the report itself. And those recommendations are basically, well, that be received, which we've done, and that the wildlife attraction bylaw be given forward to council for first reading, and that the garbage and organic collection and disposal bylaw be forwarded to amendment bylaw be forwarded to council for first reading, and that the bylaw enforcement notice amendment bylaw be forwarded to council first reading, and that council provide opportunity to receive public input on these bylaws, and that there be further report to council regarding this public input before proceeding to a second or third reading of these bylaws. And further, that the above recommendation be brought forward to council at the April 2021 regular council meeting. Is somebody prepared to move those recommendations? Councillor Kroll, second by Councillor Ladwig, thank you. Any further discussion, council? I think there's a good first step. I was reluctant to go to third because once you go there, you're precluding all that conversation that we do need to have on these kind of bylaws. So I'll call the question. All in favor? Thank you. And again, thank you, Silas and Sue, for your work on this and for other staff who participated. I think it's a good report and a good project for us to be moving forward with in this community. And another step forward, and one that I think we need to be prepared to adjust as we gain experience with it. We're now at the inquiry section of this meeting, so that I'll turn it over to the director of, the corporate officer.
If anyone has a comment, please raise your hand. We're being joined by Des Delaney.
Good. Welcome, Des. You're still muted, Mr. Delaney.
Sorry about that. It's great. The bear bylaw is awesome. The just doing the first reading is great with public input, because on first read of this, what jumped out at me was the 3.5.1, that you're including birds in the wildlife, and that you've got to secure the nuts on the trees against birds, which really, I think that's where you get bogged down with these bylaws. Just make it a bear bylaw. That's the issue, bringing birds in and nuts on trees and who knows what else. I don't know why it belongs in a bear bylaw. And, that's just one comment. I'm sure there'll be more that come out during the discussions on it, but it's, casting all wildlife when it's really focused against bears. And the other thing is that really there's way more interactions with deer, mothers with fawns attacking dogs than bear attacks. You know, most of the bears, they've got their territory. They don't really bother people too much unless people are leaving garbage out. And I think, you know, my understanding is that they can be charged if they do that. So that's just, you know, some comments going forward on it. And then lastly, I just, you know, I'm getting sick and tired of every single time something comes up, someone's got to throw STR in there, that STR people are doing this and doing that and everything else with zero information, zero credibility. And I really think it's time to stop. So, you know, just don't, what on earth has a bear bylaw got to do with STR? Like, really, come up with some facts, come up with the address, come up with the issue. Otherwise, don't even bring it up. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Delaney. I appreciate your comments. Thank you.
If there's anyone else, please raise your hand. I see no further hands raised, Mayor Beamish.
Okay, well, thank you. I'd like to thank everybody who attended today and who participated in the meeting. Our next meeting of this is going to, the committee of the whole will be 3 o'clock on Tuesday, May the 4th. We are actually going to move in camera for another presentation. And so that, and we will see you again at a 7 o'clock meeting, those of you who are going to join us on this journey tonight. So that, thank you very much. And I'd like a motion from council to close this meeting in accordance with sections 91K of the community charter. And this is negotiations and related discussions respect to the proposed provision of municipal service, their early stages, and in view the council could reasonably expect it to harm the interests of the municipality if they were held in public. So we'll close, motion to close. Councillor Ludwig, Councillor Lumley, all in favor of closing the meeting? Thank you very much. And we have a few minutes before our first presenter to that in camera comes forward. So